Hi, welcome to episode 7 of Ghana Made Lit by the Goethe-Institut Ghana. My name is Dorcas Fafaliche and I'll be your host for this episode. On this episode, we are talking about reading for pleasure, a tete-a-tete with 3 of our favorite panelists. And to set the ball rolling, I would let Sylvia start with the introduction. This time, we want to know what your favorite food is, your hobbies. Just tell us something about you.
Okay, so my name is Sylvia Arthur. I'm the founder of the Library of Africa and the African Diaspora in West Legon here in Accra. My favorite food, I'm going to be really English about it. And I'm going to say I like chips, like chip shop chips, with lots of onion vinegar and malt vinegar on it, and saveloy, which is a type of sausage that you get in the UK, which is very terrible, but I like it a lot. So that's definitely my favorite food.
When it comes to favorite hobbies?
Favorite hobbies, I like music. I like a lot of music, and probably I like music more than books, which surprises a lot of people.
Wow.
Yes, but obviously I'm here today in my book capacity, so yeah, I'm ready to talk books.
Okay, welcome.
Thank you.
Sir.
All right, my name is Asare Kunedu Yamwa. I'm a publisher, an aspiring writer, and of course, a cultural activist. Yes, my favorite food, perhaps, Madam just said, kokonte with any soup.
Hey.
Any soup.
Any soup at all?
Yes. So that is what you want to hear.
Yeah.
My hobbies, I like reading, doing my job, publishing, which is being with books, and waking up at dawn, getting into the garden to meditate before 6 o'clock.
That's nice.
That's brilliant.
Yeah.
That's what I do.
Madam?
So my name is Sarah Fafali Dogbaji Osei. I am a woman with a great many faces. I am a member of faculty in the School of Performing Arts, University of Ghana, Legon, that is scholarly. I am a theater artist. I like to perform. I am a storyteller. I like to tell stories. I am a farmer. I keep pigs, I have goats, I have chicken, I have chicks, I have ducks, I have rabbits.
Wow.
I have many things. I till the land. I eat my own vegetables and my own grains. I plant my own food. And my favorite meal, you asked me earlier, can I say it now?
Yes.
I had it this evening because I was looking forward to a great time here, so I wanted my belly to start feeling great. I had konkonte with okra stew. There was nane inside. Dawa dawa and momone were present.
Now you're making me say,
And it really went down very well. Yes.
It should be.
Yes. I like to swim when it comes to doing exercises. My favorite is swimming. But I also like thinking of thinking, which means I'm not thinking. I'm not thinking of what to think of. I like that, the quiet moments. And I love to spend time reading. When I have a good book, I like to put my feet up with good, cool music in the background. And I just fly. Otherwise, my pillow is my best friend.
I like that part, the pillow being your best friend. How would you describe yourself when it comes to books? Are you a book lover, a book hoarder, an addict?
A bit of all of those. There are some books that I find, and you know where I find them? In the secondhand bookstores.
Yeah, my favorite
you
too.
You find the most unbelievable things there. So I find those gems and I hide them. I have a few. I hide them. And apart from that, and those books, I don't like to give them out to anybody.
Yeah.
You know, I may read it to you, but I will not give it to you to take away. Apart from that, I read a lot of novels, you know, for entertainment. I like to read a lot of novels. I read a lot of cartoons. you know what we used to call comics.
Yeah.
I read that Obelix and Asterix comics and all these things. I read them. I mean, there are so many things that I like to read that they fly me back into my childhood, and I like to stay there. You know, as they say in Chi, urefi umofasia grudia uwuntem. If you forget your childhood games, if you forget how to play your childhood games, you die early.
Wow. That's something to think about.
Yes, and that kind of death is not necessarily a physical death.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
there's
Sylvia,
so many different levels.
how would you describe yourself when it comes to books?
I would describe myself as a book collector. And I definitely hunt out books, and I hunt out specific books. I love rare books, out of print books, books that they've kind of fallen out of fashion or fallen out of knowledge of the public, let's say. And I kind of feel like a book investigator in a lot of ways, you know. If I set my mind on getting a particular book and it could be out of print for many years, I will definitely find my way to getting that book. And I think a classic example is Aiko Yama's 2000 Seasons. Like, everybody who comes to the library or who contacts me on social media will say, oh, I see you've got 2000 Seasons. I can't get it anywhere. Where did you get it from? And obviously, I'm never going to reveal my sources. But I actually have 3 copies of it. And one of them is signed. Another one has a letter with it. Obviously, we have like a signed Kwame Nkrumah as well from 1957. So all those kind of things are things that turn me on in terms of books. I love the hunt, but I also love securing it as well. And kind of like what Dr. Sarah was saying, you know, I have a library, so I have to lend out certain books. I don't lend out the rare books, though, and I would never make that mistake.
I like that.
I'll tell you something. There's one that I'll tell you that I have hunted and found. I'm not sure you have found it.
Okay, go for it.
Why are we so blessed?
Yes, I
Are
have
you
that.
go-
I have
You
that.
do?
Yeah, Ikoyama, yes,
Oh,
yes. I have a first edition hardback signed, actually.
I have that one.
Okay, yes.
I got it
Yes. So I actually I hunted down, looked for a long time and bought a whole collection of first edition Aikoyamas. And a lot of them were signed, and very classily signed, I should say, because it's not just that, you know, you open the book and you sign the first page. He actually signed them along the pages of the book. So when you have the book like flat like this, it says Aikoyama and the date.
beautiful.
Yes. And so, yeah, I worked really hard to get that because
And that's
these
how-
things are not cheap, and that's how I spend my money.
Yeah.
I like that. Mr. Yama.
Yeah. Actually, on my part, I don't know whether it's an injunction or a calling anyway, because born into a family of books. My father was a journalist writer, and African writer in the African Hahnemann published.
Okay.
So we had books all over, and you were, as I grew up especially, you will be doing proofreading with him. Some of his manuscripts, when he having finished typing them, will sit you down, you read, and this section, it tells you this is supposed to be it. Proofreading manuscripts. So I think that it's become part of me for books, and I've succeeded the publishing house,
Okay.
and I'm doing publishing.
Wow.
So it's like, as I said, whether I don't know it's an injunction or a calling, but I love what I do. I love the tradition, and I feel so proud anytime that I see my father's books all over, especially when I travel to book fairs and all that.
Wow.
So books are good. It makes you feel at home. The mind rests, and of course, when you are immersed in the book, it's like you forgot everything.
Exactly.
Your surroundings are not known. So to say yes, I love books, and I think that I've come to love them
Yeah.
the more.
The more.
Yes.
How many books have you read this year?
This year, to be frank with you, if I said I've selected books to read, I can say I've read about 3 books so far, but I always do editing and proofreading of
Yes.
manuscripts.
I almost said the
You
ones that
see,
you work with.
Yes. So the manuscripts that come,
Yeah.
I work with the editors. So you have to go through them, select the ones that we want to accept and publish. And it means you have to read. to get to know the story, whether it conforms to your house style and all that. So for those ones are all part of reading.
Yeah.
Yes, but purposefully, I think about 3 books I've
That's
read.
good.
Yes.
Good. Sylvia?
Yeah, I would say, something similar in that, having a library, you would think that I read all day. And actually, that's the complete opposite of,
Yes.
of what I do, because I don't have time to read because I'm busy, running the library. So I would say I've probably read about 6 books so far this year. And I'm not a big fiction reader, but we may come to that. But I've read a collection of short stories that I absolutely loved, which is Indigo by Malara Wood. And she's a Nigerian writer, and this is a short story collection. So yeah, I mean, I read a lot in the sense that every book that I buy for the library, I try to read at least the first chapter so that I can talk to people knowledgeably about it. But obviously, if you're buying books for a library, you're buying in big quantities, and I just don't have the time to be able to read all of those books anymore, which is different from when I started the library, because all those books were my own. And so there were like 1,300 of my own books, but I'd collected them over the previous 6 years, and so I had read most of those. But yeah, it's definitely not the same running the library, especially as a business, as it is, just reading the books.
Wow.
Yeah, I was coming to you.
I read a lot. I read a lot because I have to teach it. That's one thing. And because I'm in theater, I'm teaching play analysis and interpretation, plenty of plays that you have to read. And the beautiful part is I read the plays and I select the ones I like, that I enjoy. And then we get to talk about it and I digest it some more. So that is one line of reading. I have to read journals and all these things, but I don't consider those ones as reading. Those ones are work.
For academic purpose.
Yes. But when I talk about reading, I'm talking about the one that I have crossed my eyes and I'm reading and I'm looking through and flipping and put it on my chest and close my eyes and relish the moment and finish off the picture in my mind. That is when I'm reading. So the way I'm talking about it, you can see I read it slowly and I enjoy it thoroughly. So I think this year, one thing I do is that I make it a point that when we go on holidays, I read one novel before school reopens. So every holidays, no matter how busy things are, I must find the time to read that novel and, relish and recreation and all these things. Yeah, that must happen. So this year it's been quite crazy. The breaks have not been clear cut. It's like 1 week, one session goes, 1 week after another one comes, and it's been quite hectic. So particularly in this year, I have not read as much as I would have liked to, but they are waiting.
They're waiting, they're piling up.
They're waiting. I see them and I say, ha, this one. I put it down. I put it down, But I read a lot, poetry, I read philosophical books. I find that when I sat here, I looked at thinking it through. It just caught my attention because I saw thinking and I looked at it. Yeah, so things like that, tickle my fancy.
Yeah, and you realize that from how she speaks, that it affirms that conviction or more or less idea that reading, there's various aspects of reading. You see, people read for job, people read purposely for education.
Yes.
There are those who read to enhance their lifestyle, and those who read, as we are talking about, for pleasure. You see, so the purpose for which people read is varied. And we will perhaps have the opportunity to look at that, whether indeed we are a reading nation or we are a nation that reads for purpose.
I like that. I'll come back to that. Sylvia, I'm coming back to you because you mentioned that before you collected over 1,000 books over the 6 years before you came, and you read most of them. Yes. So just give me a rough estimate. Since you were born, how many books have you read so far?
Wow. I mean, many thousands, honestly.
More than 10,000,
No,
20,000?
I doubt. I'd probably say about maybe 3,000 or so. I had some books that were stolen when I was moving in London once because I packed them into a speaker box and it was in the back of my brother's car and they obviously thought it was a speaker in there and then they ran off with it and, you know, they were probably very disappointed that it was lots of philosophy books. But I remember there was like maybe 60, 70, 100 books in there. I did philosophy at university, so I had lots of textbooks and things like that. So, I mean, if you're talking about textbooks, reading for pleasure, you know, just reading, having books for the sake of having books as well, because I think a very long to be read pile is very helpful as well. I think it makes a difference that you can just literally go to your room and say, what should I read today? You know, without having to actually go out and buy it because it's already there. Yeah, I'd probably say maybe 3,000. That's just a ridiculous, I don't know. But yeah, let's say 3,000.
I like that number. And the second question is, do you have a personal library? I know you have a,
Yes.
like you run a library.
Yes.
What's your collection size?
Do you know, I'd probably say maybe 600 or so.
That's good.
I prefer my personal library to the library. I definitely do because I think my personal library is much more diverse, for one.
Yeah.
And, you know, as I said previously, I think, you know, I'm a non-fiction reader, sorry. So I have lots of non-fiction work that probably people who come to the library would not be too enamored with, but I love personally. So, you know, the good thing about having a library and having a personal library is that I get to have everything.
I like that. Like it's balanced.
Yes.
How about you?
Oh, yeah. Would you like to hear what I have to read to you?
Yes, please.
Okay, so this is one of the books that I am hoarding. You can see that it's seen quite a bit of life. I picked it up from a secondhand bookshop.
It was published in 1923.
It was
Yes.
published in 1923. Can
like
you imagine?
that.
Not even my father was born at the time. Well, but I have it now. And it comes with a note that says, thank you, and all these things. But the most important thing about this book, listen, Al-Mustafa, it is called The Prophet by Khalil Gibran. Al-Mustafa, the chosen and the beloved, who was the dawn unto his own day, had waited 12 years in the city of Orphalese for his ship that was to return and bear him back to the isles of his birth. And in the 12th year, on the 7th day of Elul, the month of reaping, he climbed the hill without the city walls and looked seaward, and he beheld his ship coming with the mist. And the gates of his heart were flung open, and his joy flew far into the sea. And he closed his eyes and prayed in the silences of his soul. But as he descended the hill, a sadness came upon him, and he thought in his heart, how shall I go in peace and without sorrow? Nay, not without a wound in the spirit shall I leave this city. I'll skip a few places and I come to it. And now, how often have you sailed in my dreams, and now you come in my awaking, which is the deeper dream. Ready am I to go, and my eagerness with sails full set awaits the wind. Only another breath will I breathe in this still air. Only another loving look cast backwards. And he looked up. And there came out of the sanctuary a woman whose name was Almitra. She was a seeress. And she looked upon her with exceeding tenderness, for it was she who had first sought and believed in him when he had been but a day in the city. And the people of Orphalese, of what can I speak, save of that which is even now moving within your souls? And then said Almitra, speak to us of love. Do you want to know? And he raised his head and looked upon the people, and there fell a stillness upon them. And with a great voice he said, when love beckons you, follow him. Though his ways are hard and deep, and when his wings unfold you, yield to him. Though his sword hidden among his pinions may wound you, and when he speaks to you, believe in him. Though his voice may shatter your dreams as the north wind lays waste the garden. For even as love crowns you, so shall he crucify you. I tell you,
So
go and find
just
it.
a
People
second.
will.
So
go and
do you
find
have this in your Bible?
Yes,
Sorry,
in my
Library.
yes,
Yeah, no, because it's like, I love the
when
way
you read
you
with
started.
passion.
You have it in your library.
yeah, of course, yes. I mean, it's a classic.
Yes.
We have many different editions of it, like, later editions for sure. Definitely don't have a 1923 Khalil Gibran. But yeah, we do.
Okay, I think
Wonderful.
we, because when you were reading it, I was like, I need this book. I need this book.
Yes,
I need
yes,
this
yes,
book.
yes, yes.
So we'll definitely visit your library
Yes.
for it.
Yeah, and there's a site or a website, I don't know, the Gutenberg project,
Yes.
who are digitizing books that are no longer in copyright.
Yes.
So when you go there, books that have exhausted their copyright, they've digitized all of them and they are there. You can
see.
download them for free,
Okay,
and then you can read.
I will go and look for the
it's a
golden S.
lot of
that's a good
yes.
site.
So Gutenberg. the
Yeah, I think it's
German
Project Gutenberg. Project
project.
Gutenberg,
Yeah,
yes.
Project Gutenberg.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
So
That's
you
a
get
good
a
tip.
lot of books over there to read, and since you are very passionate about classical works.
Yes.
Yeah, I was even about to ask you. You said you get a lot of your books from the thrift stores, like second-hand books. I'm imagining your collection. How many books do you have?
Oh, a big room of books. I have 2 rooms, one in Nebri and one in Accra.
Wow.
And I keep changing them. When this is read, they go, and then another set comes.
So if you had to give me a rough estimate, will there be more than 5,000 books?
No, I don't think I'll get to 5,000 books. When I talk about books, I want to take out journals and all these kinds of scholarship things. I want to talk about the books that I enjoy. I think I might be, of my own collection, somewhere around 300. That's a generous
Number.
estimation.
Yeah, yeah. So,
Yeah, mine is an inheritance. Yes. Inherited the library, a very collection, including the Britannica encyclopedias. So I would say, for now, even some of the books are worn out, some have gone and did not come back. But I think that we will have not less than 3,000
wow.
books in there, and I'm adding on.
Wow.
So you come and you see. Anytime I travel for book fairs, I make it a point that at least some $100 to buy some books.
Yeah.
To come.
important.
Fortunately for me, my children too love reading. So you have to encourage them to read. So I buy anytime to add to it. Yes.
And I think that's a really beautiful thing, because I think
Yes.
we need to get to the stage where we are seeing books as legacy, if you see what I mean.
Yes.
So that
Yeah.
we have collections and libraries that we give to our children, or that
children,
become our
yes,
children,
yes.
so that they too add to it as well.
Yes.
And that's how you build knowledge at the end of the day. That's how you build generational knowledge, through which will come hopefully generational wealth and generational development as well. So I think the sooner we start seeing books as something that should be inherited, and
Yes.
something that we're building to leave to our descendants, that's a really
I'll
great
tell you
thing.
something about that. A young man walked to my office and said, Aunt Sarah, my aunt is a big professor. I know, we all know her. When I say his name, her name, you will know her, but I don't have permission to
Yes.
do that, so I will not say her name. She passed and she left me. The legacy I got was her library. And now I see that it is you who can make sense of it. So he keeps bringing the books to me.
Yeah.
Can you imagine?
All right. Yeah.
And
That's a legacy.
yes. Yes, the library of a big professor is being handed over to me. I mean, that's an honor.
That's a privilege.
You see, and you have to especially when, as we're growing up and having this interest in building libraries and books, you have to find a way of letting your children appreciate and understand the value.
Yes.
Otherwise, they would never appreciate those books and the libraries that you are establishing. And of course, would leave them either to rot, or friends come, oh, this book, I like it, oh, take it.
Oh, that brings me to my question. I wanted to ask you, what are your rules about lending books to friends and family? People who come and say, oh, you have such a beautiful library, can I pick one? Do you have any particular rules for them?
Yes, books don't go out.
Books don't go out.
Oh, seriously, they don't go out. If your friends come and they should go in there, go and read, and they can mark whatever and then come back to read again.
Oh, wow.
So my daughter, I had gone to the Lagos Book Fair. That was when Chimamanda's book, Hibiscus Purple,
People have it. Yeah.
had been launched, and I bought a copy, and I came, and she sneaked it and took it to school, and never came back. So I told her that from now on, I will not allow you to take any book out. Read it, you keep it. If a friend wants it, they should come home and come and read. You see, because it goes, and especially when those that have been autographed, when they get lost. I had one book starting, I think, early time, about 20 years ago. And I fell in love with the book, Russell Baker's Growing Up. You see, and the friend came and he said, oh, I was narrating the story to him. And I said, hey, let me go and read some. And that is the end.
I think that has happened to all of us.
I've not seen the book again. But I like the man's story, the way, the style he wrote, bringing you rural America and all that, and the life in the rural areas. So I had to even go get the ebook version and keep it so that I continue from time to time, because I like the way he wrote the story, very rich. And then if you've not even gone to America in the 50s, you read Russell's Growing Up and all over Tennessee, what happened over there in Virginia, you can just see yourself
visualize
there.
it.
So this is a style of good writers which do not fade away, you see, and
you still see it's being relevant in this day and age. Sylvia, what's your preferred genre? I know you talked about nonfiction.
Yes.
But
but it's a very specific type of nonfiction, which is creative nonfiction or narrative nonfiction, not nonfiction as in, like textbooks or, biographies necessarily. So, I'm a journalist by profession, and obviously there's a genre of writing now that is kind of journalistic in terms of reportage, but it's very much fictional in terms of the way that it's written, in terms of description, character setting, dialogue, and things like that. And that's what separates it from traditional non-fiction writing. And I personally really love that genre. It's, it's able to take you to places that you wouldn't otherwise go, but you know that you're reading truth. And that makes it even more compelling to me. I think with fiction, when I read it, I always feel like I'm reading something that's made up, even if it's the best fiction ever. And I personally think that life is stranger than fiction. So I do love creative nonfiction writing. And I also did my MA in narrative nonfiction writing. And one of the books that we had to read as part of that course was Truman Capote's In Cold Blood. I don't know if anybody has read it, but it's the story of the killing of a family in rural America in the 1950s. And Truman Capote actually went and found the two murderers and spent significant time with them. And he recreated the murder, but also recreated the people who did it and humanized them and made them people. And it is so gripping, honestly. It's, maybe 300 pages or so, but it reads like fiction. I think the best creative nonfiction reads like fiction. So you're reading it, you know it's true, but the devices that the writer uses just totally enthralls you. And so, I don't think in Ghana here, creative nonfiction is a genre that's very big at all.
But would you say that book was your favorite book of all time?
No, definitely not. My favorite, I'll give you my favorite book, or one of them, of all time, and it's actually fiction. And it's B. Kojo Leng's Search Sweet Country. Obviously, Ghanaian writer, set in Accra. Honestly, the man describes Accra in a way that I've never read it described before. It makes no sense, it has no plot, it has no structure, but he was a poet, and so the prose is beautiful, absolutely beautiful. And you're reading it and you're wondering what is going on, but you keep on reading just because it's just so beautifully written. And like I said, I think for Ghanaian writers, I would love to read more Ghanaian writers who are writing about a place that we know exists, if you see what I mean. Because I think lots of Ghanaian writers tend to write without context. And you can be reading it and it could be like, well, this could be anywhere. But when you read Biko Jelang's Search Sweet Country, you know you're in Accra in the 70s, and yet you still recognize people and places and characters and stuff like that. So definitely that's one that I would say is one of my favorites.
Sarah?
Oh, yeah.
Your favorite genre, and then favorite book of all times.
The thing is, it's not one.
Yes, I mean, me too, it's not one.
At least try and make it one for me.
I like to read. I like to read a lot of poetry and poetry, epic poems, poetry narratives. Yeah. And apart from that, there are also, you see, I don't know if it is completely fiction. Ayi Kweyama's writing.
Yes.
Because he will mention a place. When you go there, he will actually tell you that there were 3 steps to the door on your right. When you get there, it is there. When you read fragments, the descriptions are to the letter, and it puts you into a certain, world, and you begin to think and rethink. I love those kinds of writing. But of course, I also like historical pieces. Destination Biafra, for instance, will give me a good account of what happened during the Biafra War. I think that one is not fiction.
No, it's not.
It's not.
So yours is a balance.
It's a balance.
Any that makes you relax and enjoy.
It makes me relax. And you see, there's a thing that it has to speak to my soul. It has to touch on the moment of truth. That is it. If it's all flowery and they live their play, we thank God for that. But I
like that. I like that.
Yeah. Bitek will say, this is a poem, you see. He says,
is this your favorite poem?
It is. It says, the woman with whom I share my husband.
Oh, wow.
Would you want to know? Ocho rejects the old type. He's in love with a modern woman. He's in love with a beautiful girl who speaks English. But only recently we would sit close together, touching each other. Only recently we would play on my bohab, singing praises to my beloved. Only recently he promised that he trusted me completely. I used to admire him speaking English. Ocho is no longer in love with the old type. He's in love with a modern girl. The name of the beautiful one is Clementine. My sister, he says brother, but my sister in this case. When you see Clementine, the beautiful one aspires to look like a white woman. Her lips are red hot like glowing charcoal. She resembles a wild cat that has dipped its mouth in the blood. Her mouth is like raw yaws. It looks like an open ulcer, like the mouth of a field. Thin dust powder all over her face, and it looks so pale. She resembles a wizard getting ready for the midnight dance.
I think the way you're reading is making some of us wish. Like, it's like you were there and then you're watching the lady whose lips have been dipped in blood.
And the way in this poem, Bitek talks about acculturation. This is a man writing, though. It's a man writing, pretending to be speaking from the perspective of a woman, talking about another woman. But it is what the men are saying about the women. Wow. And the way she is adorning herself. Is that really you? Or it is somebody else? You see, and the wit with which He says it. I like these kinds of writing because they inform the way I speak. They inform the way I tell my stories. Aha. They make me see new perspectives of things that we would otherwise call ordinary. Aha.
That's good.
Interesting.
See,
I love that.
we were talking about the style of Ghanaian writers. You see, the writers, Ghanaian writers from the 50s, at least up to the 80s, were writing with culture and history. Yes. That is why you said fragments will give you a vivid account that you go and exactly what is there. They had the culture and the history. And this is where they mixed and, of course, bring out the rich stories that they wrote. So when you have my father's books, for instance, all his books, when you read them, it gives you that inclination that, look, this thing really happened, or to an extent, it's somehow true. You see, but today, as you say, the context is quite. I receive manuscripts, and you know whether the writer is trying to write to appease the foreign reader, or trying to have his or her own and projecting what is in that to the world. That is the conflict that we experience today. But for any good book that you read, I advise that you go back again. But before you read it again, you have to look for the biography of the author, read it extensively, and if possible, the background of the author being the history with his culture or ethnic group. That, when you come back to read the novel, it takes you straight into the mind and the heart of the author. Because every author writes with the culture and the ethnic distance at the back of their minds. Even at the milieu in which they lived during that period of writing. So Ngugi wa Thiong'o will write during the colonial times in Kenya what transpired. So you read If Not Child, it gives you exactly what the colonial era was in Kenya or East Africa. You see, Aikwama will tell beautiful ones are not yet born. That book tells you, people say beautiful ones, and no. He was talking about corruption way back in the 60s. Corruption, especially in the timber industry. You see, so when you read the story, and today you sit back and realize, so you understand where the person is coming from, and you have an interest. You are able to relate the story even up to today. We are still talking about corruption. We are still talking about the cocoa corruption, gold, and all those things. So writers are prophetic. And they write, and you realize that 100 years to come, you are reading Khalil's book that was published in 1923, but still when you read, it's still relevant.
Can still relate to every aspect of it.
So I like fiction, especially historical novels, books that talk about culture. I like them.
Who are your top 5 favorite authors?
No, my top 5, obviously, one is Russell Baker. Then my own father too, another is my mentor.
That's important.
And I have George Eliot, Silas Manner. She was a woman, you know.
Oh, really?
Yes, Mary Ann.
Wow.
And that time, in those days she was writing, women were not supposed to write in Britain. So she had to use a pen name of a man. You see, but so interesting is that when you read Silas Manner and you are quite smart, you realize it's a woman who is writing this story. Because the feminine, this thing can place out. You see, so you don't be surprised later when you realize that it was a woman who wrote and was coming out.
In fact, I'm hearing it for the first time.
Yes, so I like that, and I think one maybe contemporary ones, maybe Ruby Goka. Ruby Aya Goka also is another good writer. Yes. And if she continues like that, I think she's going to make waves. Yes.
Wow. Sylvia?
Well,
Top five?
I mean, I can't name a top five because I do like a lot of writers and a lot of books. I'll say, I mean, obviously I'll put B. Kojoleng in there for Search Sweet Country alone. Amata Edu, I'll say, yeah, I mean, I came to Amata Edu late. I was born and educated in the UK. We didn't read any black writers, I mean, ever.
Oh,
so
right.
it was up to you yourself to kind of find yourself in your books. And when I was growing up, I used to read a lot of African-American authors because there were not that many black British authors who were published at the time. So obviously Maya Angelou, Toni Morrison, Alice Walker, all those kind of people. James Baldwin is a favorite, actually. If I'm talking about favorites, I do love James Baldwin. And then I would say as a kind of current favorite, there is an Equatorial Guinean writer called Trifonia Melibia Obono. And she wrote a book called La Bastarda, which was actually banned in Equatorial Guinea. It was published about 3 years ago. And it's the first book to be translated into English from Equatorial Guinea when it was published in, I think it was about, like I said, 2 or 3 years ago.
What is it about?
So it's about a young girl called Akomo from the Fon tribe in Equatorial Guinea. And it's really about her kind of struggling against the norms and the constraints of being a girl in her society. And she's looking for her dad, actually, because she is being brought up by her grandparents. Her mother died. She doesn't know who her dad is. And her dad was like an outcast in the culture. And so she's going around trying to find out who she is, trying to find out who he is, and trying to find out who she is at the same time. So it touches on things such as homosexuality, like I said, different gender issues. And it's just really powerful. It's such a short book. It's like maybe 96 pages or 100 pages, but I would recommend everybody to read it. So I would say she is definitely like a contemporary favorite of mine.
Wow. So?
Oh, yeah. I read a lot of Aikweama. In fact, I've read almost all his books. It's only There's Something of the Scribes, the most recent one.
Yes,
Yes,
on his own publishing company.
yes,
yeah.
that's the only one I haven't read yet. And I like Paulo Coelho. Paulo Coelho writes beautifully, and I like that. I read a lot of African writers, really. I have done, thankfully, all my education has been in Ghana. So I have really delved into a lot of African writers. I read a lot of Oshofishan, Amatedu. Fantastic piece of writing that she does.
Yes.
Her short stories, her novels, beautiful.
The drama plays.
Yes, her plays. Wow, I did my PhD with one of her plays.
All right.
Beautiful pieces of writing. And Sutherland, you know, and Yawasari, and Meshach.
Mashakasari is
He's a children's writer.
No. This is Alphonse Asari. Yawasari. He doesn't write Alphonse. He signs Yawasari.
All right.
And the names are eluding me now.
Yeah.
Yeah, but my most recent discovery is MP Barnier. It's very recent.
She writes, I think, romantic novels.
Yes, she does.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Those are good ones.
Yes.
Okay, so let me start with you. Between ebooks, hard copies, and audiobooks, which do you prefer?
I will tell you the truth that hard copies are the thing.
It smell like how the books smell or how comfortable
I
it
don't
feels?
know. It's just old school. But I love hard copies, and I can make my little pencil notes on the side. You know, we thank God for all the technology. But I will tell you that my first experience with Paulo Coelho was an audiobook.
Oh, wow.
I was traveling with
Was
my
he the one
husband.
narrating?
No. You usually get a
Someone
performer
else
to
to
do
do
the
it,
narration.
I know.
But I'm doing works with Akko Books.
Oh,
Yes,
wow.
I'm doing things with she's doing great with doing her audiobooks, so I can lend my voice to the making of the audiobooks, which is fine. I haven't started yet, but we're doing other things. So audiobooks are great you know, I can't forget that trip because of that story that we listened to, you know, during the trip. It was brilliant. And that was when I started looking for Paulo Coelho. So audiobooks are great. If you're busy, you don't find the time to sit, or there's not enough light for you to read, you have sight problem, listen to the audiobooks. The ebooks are not my kind of thing because of sight issues. When I look on the screen for a while, there's something about the screen. Oh, the screen is a screen. It does bring a barrier. You know, so when I'm looking on the screen and doing things, I don't feel the vibe.
You don't feel the like the book is not. I get that. Sylvia.
I agree totally with what Dr. Sarah said. I prefer books, the physical object, because I do think that books are a work of art and should be collected as well. And I'm one of those kind of suckers who will buy a book just because it's come out with a different cover. You know, the same book, but it's got a different cover now. And so obviously that's a way for publishers, sorry, no offense, but to obviously get more of your money.
Right.
I'm one of those people who happily spends my money on those kind of things. But even with the physical object of the book, I prefer hardback books to paperback books for sure, because of their durability. They last longer. They're handsome books, actually. They make your room, just from an aesthetic perspective, look so much better. And obviously lots of first editions come out in hardbacks initially. And then in terms of ebooks, I'm not a fan at all as well, but I do like audiobooks. But I find the thing with audiobooks is that if I really, really like it, you can't have it on in the background. You have to stop and listen to it hard. And then if I do like an audiobook enough, I'll have to buy the print book. So.
So it's that. Mr.
Yeah, actually, with experience, you realize that the physical book has always been the best. Apart from the cultural significance, the feel of having owned the book. You see how she has been able to guard this book. If the file got lost in an ebook listing, she will be crying by now. And here you have it. You have it. This one, you can bend the book, put it in your pocket, wherever. Your phone could get cracked if you are not careful. You see, but apart from that, having this, when you get to this room setting with the collection, there's an artistic feel.
Yes.
And that aura of the smell of print in itself gives you some sense of relaxation. Those who are also, for us who are really natural, you realize that the books are all earth materials, and there's some bond between you and the material that you are holding. So the ebooks are good, but to us in publishing, it has come to complement what the hard book is doing. You know, in the early 2005s, when the ebook craze was so high, it jumped. But interestingly, 2 years after, in 2007, ebook sales went down and the physical books went up. So there's this telling that the trend is such that, and it has continued. People felt that craze, went and sought it, you see, like a woman with the first love. Realize that it is something that is not, after all, not that exciting as you have envisaged.
Yes.
So you come back to your own self and then you continue. So the ebook is good, especially for academic purposes.
It's accessible.
It has helped.
It's very
It has
accessible.
helped. But for reading, for pleasure, I think that the hard book, that is so.
And I think to go back to something we were discussing earlier about legacy and inheritance, you can't leave your child, ebooks.
A collection of ebooks.
I mean, it's not the same as leaving them, a library full of, thousands of books, or just even one book that has some significance to you personally and your family, to hand it down to your child. You wouldn't hand down an ebook or a Kindle. So.
How does your perfect reading evening look like? For me, I like to read with a cup of tea, And you talked about the fact that you like listening to music. With the tea.
Good tea.
Yeah, I don't have tea, but I have music. I can definitely read with music.
Music, all right.
Yeah, I actually think I would struggle to read without it actually. But yeah, I'm not the tea person, but I also read at night as well. I'm not a day or a morning person at all. So like from 9 o'clock to maybe 1 o'clock, I could read quite nicely.
Have you ever stayed up till morning because of a book?
Yes, quite often.
And how do you feel after that?
What fulfilled?
Yeah, I mean,
You don't regret it?
No. You're just excited. There's some books when you hold them, you can't put them down.
Yeah.
You must finish.
Obama's book, Audacity of Hope.
Yes.
That kept you up the whole night?
Yes, because I was traveling to Frankfurt for the book fair. And that's where this book had then been launched and all over. And when you meet the Europeans and the American publishers, they discuss topical issues over lunch, and you'll be lost out if something comes up. So I was forced to try and read this book before I get to Frankfurt, so that in discussions you can also contribute. Otherwise, they will say, look at the blacks. They don't read anything. You see the point? So sometimes, yes, for a purpose, you have to make sure you have at least read a book. But if a book is interesting, that is how we have the flexibility of the physical book. When you are tired, put it under your pillow, you sleep. When you wake up, you continue. You see, because women are like that. Men do not read throughout. We don't do that. A woman can sit down throughout the day or even interspersed with whatever, read a complete novel.
Yeah. Especially when it's exciting.
Exciting, yeah.
And the character keeps you like,
but we don't do that. And when I read, I don't want an interruption. Even when I'm reading, I don't want an interruption. So I focus on reading the whole thing. Yeah, rather than having my sister with music, and I can't do that. I need the silence and the serenity.
I live the moment.
Yes.
I live the moment. Sometimes I get up and dance a bit.
have you ever gotten angry at a book character before that you want to slap?
Yes, I do that. You know, the whole thing is a relationship that you develop with the book, and even wanting to make sure your books are well kept, that they are breathing, so that they don't what do you call it? They don't grow moldy and
the pages begin to die.
How do you preserve your books?
I mean, it's very difficult for me because I have so many, but air conditioning is important. That's all I can say, especially in Ghana here, you know, where you have all kinds of insects and the heat that's deteriorating the pages and stuff like that. As long as you can keep them in a cool temperature, I think that's a really good thing. But just to pick up on something, you know, I think one thing that's really underrated about reading is community, because obviously reading is such an individual thing, but actually the community that you build up from reading a book or reading books, you know, you read a book and it's fantastic to you. You want to tell everybody else about it. You want to be able to discuss it. You want to be able to find out if you're on the same page, literally, you know, with another person, or if you're not, why not? And I think it's a really beautiful thing, the communities that are built up around reading and books. And I think that's probably a way, or possibly a way, to get others who are not so much into reading to get into it, you know.
The very important thing to add to what it is, my husband and I are both crazy about Paulo Coelho. We are both crazy about Aikweyama. Yeah. So he's like, Fafa, have you seen this one?
Yes.
He's like, I'm going to get it.
Yes.
He buys and
Wow.
You know, and that is the essence, and that is what is missing in the Ghanaian situation. That books are read for pleasure. Books are read for a purpose, and the society, the people, the society, the government, there should be an objective. You see, we tend to believe that, we should read. Reading and just reading cannot promote literacy, you see, but reading to enhance your lifestyle, your circumstance. So whoever reads, I'm telling you, at the end of the day, when you see somebody who reads, you see this person reads. The demeanor, the appearance, the aura, and all that has been shaped by what the person has read. You see, we are in the country, people do not read. They don't see why they should read. But if we have that objective and a direction, we will read. Because if you are reading something that will enhance your lifestyle, will enhance your circumstance, you see, open up your mind, give you more knowledge, expose you to other territories that you've not even visited physically. You see, we are here, we read, but believe you me, people read, but do not interpret the reading, you see, and apply. So you see, do not urinate here, and the person is standing there urinating. No stopping, and the driver will stop there. Why? He has seen no stopping, but relating it, interpreting it, and relating it to what what a circumstance or whatever we are trying to discuss. It's not there. So we encourage people to read, yes, but let us read and interpret the reading and apply to our circumstance. Otherwise, we will read anything and nothing will change in this country.
And as we are talking about reading in this kind of manner, we should also encourage reading in Ghanaian languages.
Yes, yes.
We should encourage people to read
Read and writing.
Write in the lab. So I if I don't find any interesting thing, I read it from the Bible.
Yeah.
It is readily available. So you read that because we have to keep the culture and the philosophies of our nation, our communities alive. We have to keep it alive.
Mm-hmm. It is, Idi Amin had gone to what? The United Nations when he was then in 1975. And Swahili then was Swahili, Kiswahili, East Africa, we all know most countries. But he stood there and he said, I want to speak Swahili. You see, and from then on, Kiswahili has become an international language. And today, it is a language that is acceptable with equal translations at the United Nations. So your language, you have to be proud about it. Anybody, any psychologist will tell you that in all of us, we think in our mother language before we speak. So even if you are speaking English, you think in your language before you speak the English. So you realize that people who are very thoughtful, are very cautious in speaking because they are thinking, translating whatever they are thinking into the language that is being asked to speak. So he takes his time to do that, and then this thing comes out. So as he's saying, let us understand that we are able to progress and improve when we learn the language and let the children build upon that. You see, the strength of the mind lies in your mother tongue.
That's it.
Wow, this has been interesting. I know by now they are telling me that we have to wrap up. I can see some signals from the side of her. So in wrapping up, I just wanted to hear from you how reading for pleasure has made an impact in your space. Just some few words on that. Then we wrap up this episode. So let me start from you, Selma.
All right, I would say, but I still maintain that we are talking about reading for pleasure. Reading for pleasure is for those who are avid readers. They read and they read for pleasure. And because they appreciate the value of what they read, and as I said, they are able to translate their environment and their lifestyle with what they have read. Where we are, there's just a few of us who can say we are reading for pleasure. We have a backlog of deficits when it comes to reading. And I think that we should begin to let people understand that you read, but you must read with an objective. you learn something from what you read. And that what you have learned must be able to translate or enhance your lifestyle. We read, and then you know that this is a health material. They're telling you the COVID, especially with COVID scenario, and there are a lot of instructions over there. Wherever you pass, this and they do. If you read, the person will read, as I told you, will read casually, but the translation, the interpretation of what has been read into the mind to apply is missing. It's missing in our system. That is why we still do not have people or the community by simple instructions. You go to Europe and you have a sign there. Everybody respects that. Here you put the instructions there, nobody. Even drugs, malaria drugs, with the clear instructions, take back that. Somebody will make a mistake. You see, we have a challenge, and I think that we shouldn't trivialize what is happening.
Yeah.
I believe that it's gotten to a stage that the political elites, the political system, the academic structure that we have thinks that taking children through school means they are all right and they can continue in life. But we are burdened by a certain educational consciousness that has not translated into any enhancement for our people and for the country. So there should be a reorientation of how we want people to read, what they should derive from the reading.
Mm-hmm. And that would help greatly. Dr. Sarah?
I think we should read to become better human beings in relation to our environment. When you read, it gives you insight into this life and its living, into aspects of life that you have never thought of. Because what you're reading is another person's experience that you're going to benefit from. So reading actually broadens the horizon of your thinking. It gives you more thinking vocabulary, so that when you see a thing, you have the ability to analyze it from various perspectives. So when you confront life, you confront the life as a balanced individual. You become more stable as you wade through this journey we call life. And so if we are saying that we have to be the change we are looking for in society, we have to read to arrive at that position where we can make informed decisions. Do you see? So reading broadens our minds. Reading, it purifies the soul. Good books, I beg. Read good books.
Okay, we have to add that too. It's important, good books.
Read good books, because there's so many things that have been written. People are writing and churning things out like this, but it's Charlie. Read good, mature books. Books that can transform life. Books that will make you stop to think again. You know? Yes.
Okay. Sylvia?
Well, let me try to end with a solution to the problem of people not reading for pleasure, which is obviously, it's not a new solution at all. In fact, it's probably going back to our roots as Ghanaians and as Africans. And we have sat here and we've listened to Dr. Sarah reading very passionately from two of her favorite books. And I think that the culture of storytelling is very important to encouraging people to read for pleasure, because although we would like everybody to read, it's just not going to happen. You know, I'm talking about from a literacy perspective, but also from the perspective of books aren't for everybody, and we just have to accept that sometimes. But there are ways that you can translate the written word into something that is more accessible and appealing to people who would not naturally read books. And like I said, I think storytelling and the oral art of reading is very important for doing that. So.
Wow. Yes, sir.
Maybe I'll end. All of us with this write-up. I did some write-up, but I didn't put a section.
I'm interested.
It says children with a high level of reading comprehension are significantly more likely to be able to move through the world with success. Students who struggle with reading comprehension, on the other hand, are more likely to struggle in school and find their job prospects severely limited. So that's what I was telling you, that it's not just the reading, the comprehension. What you read, how do you understand it? And then as he said, it has a lot of dimensions. And that is the thoughts that are able to give you that broad view of analyzing what you've read and, of course, sifting and getting what will help you enhance. So if you don't comprehend what you have read, how can you use it to apply to enhance your life? So, and as it says, potentially, those who understand reading, appreciate reading, are able to progress in life. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you. Like, we are grateful that the three of you honored our invitation. This has been one interactive episode. I know when we are watching this, we will be like, oh wow, we should have even said this, we should have even added this. But this was a beautiful episode. Thank you for watching. We are honored that you stayed throughout, and we hope to see you next time. Bye.